Kia ora koutou and welcome to the first Optimise webinar for 2016. Today's topic is Going Mobile, the next steps that you can take. My name is Helen Bartle and I'm the Senior Advisor for Audience Development and Capability Building at Creative New Zealand. And it's great to see so many of you on the session, both new and familiar names. In this morning's webinar, Director of the Audience Connection, Vicky Allpress-Hill, will take you through the latest trends and best practice in mobile. She'll be suggesting practical steps that you can take and also how to gain meaningful insights about your audience's behaviour on mobile from freely available analytics tools. We're also really pleased that joining the webinar will be Lauren Whitney, Associate Director of the New Zealand International Comedy Festival. She'll be sharing discoveries and ongoing approaches to engaging with audiences on mobile, building on her popular case study at last year's Big Conversation. We'll be breaking midway through the webinar and at the end, so you can ask Vicky any questions you might have. And the chat box is on the left-hand side, and I will moderate question time. If we don't get to all the questions today, then we'll certainly follow up after the webinar. So now to today's session, I'd like to hand over to Vicky.
Hello Helen and hello everyone. So as Helen mentioned, I'm founder and director of the Audience Connection based here in Auckland, New Zealand, and along with fellow consultant Catherine Wish-and-Hannah, I work alongside organisations in the arts and cultural sector here and internationally to help them navigate digital technology. So this takes us into all sorts of areas of digital strategy, social media marketing, analytics and benchmarking, and website development. It's an honour today to be joined by one of our local art sector's most accomplished digital marketers, Lauren Whitney. As Helen mentioned, Lauren is Associate Director of New Zealand International Comedy Festival. So welcome to you all and thank you for sharing part of your morning with us today. So to just quickly run through what we'll cover today, the webinar is divided into 4 sections. We'll start with a look at what's going out there on mobile in terms of developments and trends, which is useful for you to be aware of as New Zealand arts marketers. And we're going to talk a little bit about multi-channel mobile journeys and just thinking about mobile, not just about mobile optimized websites, but how it impacts everything you're doing digitally. And after a short break for questions at that point, Lauren will share with us her mobile journey at the New Zealand International Comedy Festival. And then we'll wrap up with a very quick look at some of the mobile audience data you can see in the analytics programs that you have access to. And there'll be a short question time at the end. And as Helen has mentioned in the chat box, there'll be a recording of this webinar and a copy of the slide deck available through Creative New Zealand. And we'll finish up at 11:30 a.m. So in his book, The Third Screen, Chuck Martin says, there is no question about it, the world has changed. It has gone mobile. And this made me really think. Your customers are free from the confines of their homes, offices, and traditional media and retail environments. So really there are so many ways in which they can be viewing our website, our social media, our email. And there's an infinite number of possibilities of types of journeys and contexts. Mobile phones and tablets have spearheaded a massive shift in the way our audiences engage with us. So everything digital is going mobile. Websites are, social media is, email is, content, video, advertising, ticketing and fundraising, and numerous other things we can think about. So in 2013 at the Tessitore Learning and Community Conference in San Francisco, I was very lucky to hear internationally recognized digital product leader Luke Robliksky talk about mobile-first design. And what Luke says is that when a team designs mobile first, the end result is an experience focused on the key tasks users want to accomplish without extraneous detours and general interface debris that litter today's desktop access sites. Our New Zealand and international arts audiences are consumers who have fast-growing expectations around what we deliver to them on mobile and how we deliver it. We know this. But as resource-stretched arts organisations, if we're getting behind, we can feel overwhelmed. And if we have gone mobile responsive, as more than half of you have, is that all we need to do? So what's going out there on mobile? What am I hearing? What am I seeing? What are we all noticing? The first is that mobile responsive websites are no longer a nice to have, unfortunately, for us all. Consumer behaviour has completely changed and audiences connect can connect with us anytime, anywhere, and they do. 60% of American millennials believe that everything will be done on mobile within the next 5 years, and they may well be right. Research New Zealand's report on a survey of New Zealand's use of smartphones and other mobile communications devices in 2015 tells us that smartphones are at 70% penetration, up from 48% in 2013, and tablets and iPads are at 51%, and that's up from 29% in 2013. Feature phone, the last graph here, by the way, is a mobile phone that incorporates features such as the ability to access the internet but lacks the advanced functionality of a smartphone. Google runs research and publishes a consumer barometer, and this is for New Zealand, and it shows that smartphones are now having penetration across all age groups. And I thought this was interesting in these charts here that I also found, where you can see the shift in adoption in the older age segments, particularly the 45 to 54, a massive shift between 2014 and 2015. In the New Zealand arts sector, we've been able to track the growth in mobile visits to websites in our Optimise online marketing benchmarking study. We've aggregated the data, Google Analytics data, for 38 arts organisations representing a range of genres and locations. And from this, we've been able to see significant change in the ratio between desktop and mobile and tablet visits in the last 3 years. So in summary, what we're seeing now is that 33% of visitors to Optimise a participant websites are now coming from mobile or tablet. And amongst the participants, the proportion of mobile visits, by the way, range from 20% to 49%, and up there at 49% was the New Zealand International Comedy Festival, which is another reason we want to hear from them today. Of our participants, 61% were deemed to have a mobile-friendly website, deemed by Google to have a mobile-friendly website. And it is actually better than some sectors, because Spark's Home, Mobile and Business CEO Chris Quinn said recently that less than 40% of small businesses have a website, and of those that do, only a quarter have one that's mobile responsive. But although this many of your websites were mobile friendly, when I looked at them more closely, some of them are not well optimized content-wise for mobile. So it's not just enough to have a mobile friendly site. So how did I know this? How did I know mobile friendly? This is really important. On April the 21st last year, Google released a new mobile-friendly ranking algorithm designed to rank mobile-friendly pages higher in Google search results when someone is searching on mobile. Organizations without mobile-friendly websites are now becoming significantly disadvantaged. This mobile-friendly tool can be found online, and it tells you immediately if you are not mobile-friendly, horrible red bar with the red crosses, or if you are, like Christchurch Symphony Orchestra, who took part in our Developing Digital Strategy initiative and prioritised developing a mobile responsive site. So have this nice score here. Mobile is extremely important to Google. The reason they're doing this is because its aim has always been to provide users with the best possible experience no matter what device they're using to search online. So they're not just being deliberately cruel and forcing us to invest in mobile responsive sites. They are actually trying to deliver a service. So they only want to direct people to sites that people can view properly on mobile. And search, given the number of Google searches that now take place on mobile, this is truly significant. So if we return to Google's Consumer Barometer for New Zealand, we see that 45% of people use search engines when on mobile. And this is critical for finding new audiences and gaining awareness. This is how people are going to find you. And it's not just Google that wants to provide the best possible user experience on mobile. Of course, we do too. So a very quick reminder for those of you, this is interesting, 30% of mobile users abandon a transaction if the experience is not optimized for mobile. And I could pull out any number of statistics that kind of proves this point that we inherently know. So if you're not yet mobile responsive, here are 3 of primary options for becoming so. And you can talk to your web developers about this. I'm not a web developer, but the 3 primary ways are to have a mobile version of your current site, which is a separate mobile optimized website, meaning you have two web properties, your own website, your main desktop website, and then one that's designed for mobile. It's when you see m.audienceconnection.com or similar, when someone has, you see the M at the beginning of the URL. It has its own code base and it's designed exclusively for users to view on mobile devices. What it does mean is two lots of content, two lots of updating. The second is to have a responsive site, which is a single website that adjusts the size or the layout of the screen by adapting content, design, and navigation. And the third is a mobile app, which is an app specifically designed for mobile users that must be accessed via the online store. And it interacts with mobile-specific features of your phone and can be used offline. So your choice as to which way you go has to be weighed up amongst a number of factors. Your resourcing, your brand, like who are you trying to reach and what are you trying to represent with your brand, the sort of marketing investment you can make, the user experience, and obviously cost. So when I talk about marketing investment, if you have a mobile app, there's a lot of investment in terms of promoting that app and keeping it top of people's minds, because an app can disappear on someone's phone and they might never look at it again unless they've switched on alerts and you're constantly updating it. And obviously you need to keep the app itself updated. So typically in the art sector we're suggesting responsive sites, and later on Lauren is going to talk to you about her journey and how she went through all these different options and how she chose what she chose. So a truly responsive site will create a streamlined experience for users. So it will utilize some of the latest design and content techniques for mobile responsive websites. So this one for the High Line in New York. Some of you may have walked along the High Line, the redeveloped railway line. It was a winner in the Cultural Institutions category of the 19th Annual Webby Awards last year. We can see it's ranked high in Google and marked mobile friendly when I search for it on my phone, but it also features a few things that you'll start to see in mobile site design and recent site design. Flat design, I can talk more about that later, but flat design is basically really focusing on usability of websites and not a sort of 3D experience, and more scrolling. So because people on tablets have become used to scrolling, the pages can be quite long. This one features parallax scrolling, which involves the background moving at a slower rate to the foreground. And a lot of storytelling, which from a content point of view is quite important, and it's image rich and it involves interaction, inviting people to share their stories, etc. But the scrolling thing is important. It used to be that anyone who used to come to my presentations 10 years ago would hear me going on and on about keeping things above the fold. Users are now happy to scroll, and a lot of that has to do with them being used to scrolling on a tablet and a phone. So that's for those of you who haven't yet become mobile responsive, absolutely critical for you to retain competitive advantage. For those of you with a mobile responsive website, it's really important not to stop there and to remember this is one part of an infinite number of dynamic audience journeys. It's one part of your digital ecosystem. So you do need to be thinking more broadly, and your website is a living, breathing entity, so content is what's going to keep it alive and help you engage with people on mobile. So the next thing that I'm seeing is that now more email opens on mobile than on desktop. There's a lot of statistics out there telling us that now. Email is not dead, by the way. It's, according to Campaign Monitor, 40 times more effective at acquiring new customers than Facebook or Twitter, and I would believe that. It's a really great conversion tool. So this shift to email opens on mobile is a big one. It's easy for us to get caught in the mindset that our audiences are reading our email on desktop. And this study here shows that nearly 68% of emails are being opened on a mobile device and 52% of those on smartphones. And the iPhone is the dominant device. And if we look at these statistics here, in the media, entertainment and publishing sector, 49.5% were opened on a smartphone. So fortunately, email service providers such as MailChimp and some of the email clients such as Gmail are adapting to this trend, which certainly helps us. So MailChimp and others provide responsive templates. And according to one email service provider, click-through rates are about 23% higher using responsive templates. So what we really need to do is start rethinking our email strategies for mobile. So some of the things we can do is utilize responsive email templates, use a few kind of design elements that optimize emails for mobile, single column designs, ensuring a reasonable font size, avoiding navigation bars. Some of these emails have those navigation bars on the top. Using single calls to action when you can. Using images a bit more sparingly, keeping content short and sweet. So those are some of the pieces of advice I'm reading. And also it's really important to preview and test your campaigns on mobile and segment your campaigns if you can and choose templates for mobile and desktop if you can, if you're able to do that. So that's an option for you too. So this is affecting social media as well. So mobile devices have become the primary screen for social media, most social media users. So just a few of the many statistics I'm seeing. 47% of Facebook users only log in from a mobile device, so they never log in any other way. 90% of video views on Twitter occur on mobile. 50% of LinkedIn users access via mobile, and so it goes on. I could pull out probably 100 statistics. It's about getting ourselves into that mindset that they're probably looking at us on mobile, on social. By the way, here's a little statistic from the Optimizer program that 6% of our website visits come from social referral. I just threw that in there. I thought it's not exactly related to mobile, but just to give you something like that. And the social media advertising is the other thing I wanted to talk about. So also other advertising on mobile. So mobile advertising needs to become a part of our plans and our thoughts. So in Facebook, you can obviously specify the mobile news feed and focus your advertising on mobile users. And you can do that across a number of platforms. The other thing, of course, is that there are many mobile-first social networks, such as Instagram, that are really growing. And so that enables you to capitalize on the growing place of mobile in your social media activities by utilizing all the mobile platforms and mobile advertising, and then also optimizing your social media for mobile. So things like using quality images, keeping text concise, pinning relevant posts to the top of the page, which you can do now in a number of the platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, so that because they're not seeing as much on their screen. And I read about tailoring the timing of your activity to when your mobile social users are online. So if you've apparently like more in the evenings, a lot of mobile social users are online, but that will be specific to your audience. And very importantly, keeping video short and sweet and encouraging real-time sharing, because that's what social media is all about on mobile, obviously. And just quickly about video, here is some video views from the Optimizer program showing the average video view duration. And you can see it's much lower on mobile than desktop. That's no surprise, but we've proven it. So just when you're thinking about video, think about people being in that context. And yeah, mobile devices have changed the face of video. It's to do with the number of mobile devices, the faster download speeds, greater reliance on Wi-Fi versus mobile data, and the proliferation of channels. But 2016 is set to be the year we see mobile video explode. And so we are starting to see that 35% of total YouTube channel views across our Optimizer participants were made on mobile or tablet. And that is a growth of around 13%. So it's growing year by year, and you can have a look at that later. And we're just seeing that across all video platforms who are releasing statistics that the growth of video plays on mobile and tablet is increasing. Something else that's really important to us in the arts is the use of mobile video streaming. So live platforms such as Periscope that are allowing you to stream live from events and stream live from pre-show talks and do backstage tours and stream live to an audience. So that's another trend that we're seeing. So just really quickly, some of the things I'm seeing, mobile will completely dominate desktop. It's the end of one-size-fits-all content designing. We've got everything from Apple smartwatches to desktop, and we have to think about how our content fits on all. More flat design, more scrolling, more split testing of email between devices, the rise of mobile streaming. Social shopping is now happening within various apps where you can put buy buttons within your inline advertising, for example. You may have heard about location-based technologies that recognise customers. And if we have more time later, I can talk about those. Segmentation between mobile and desktop, and wearable devices. I don't know how many of you have a Fitbit, but that's an example of a wearable device. So you can see how that's starting to it's starting to gain traction. So just quickly, before we come up to the top of the hour and the first break for questions, I just wanted to just reinforce that we're talking about multi-channel mobile journeys, and we're not just talking about mobile websites here. And I think that for those of you who have mobile websites, it doesn't stop, I'm afraid. This is what we have to start thinking about. So we know things like approximately 2/3 of all adult New Zealanders now own or have access to 3 or more devices. And we know about things like multi-screen activity. So you're watching TV, but you're also on your iPad, and the two are connecting up. So this is quite an old model from Australia Council for the Arts. So it's 5 years old now, but I've always really liked it. It's the audience journey model, and it can be adapted to whatever type of organisation you are. So you may not sell tickets, for example, but you still have an audience journey. And the whole journey is about how you go through the phases of awareness, or the audience member or the customer go through phases of awareness, research, then making in this case it's a booking, but making the purchase decision really, making the purchase, or making the commitment if it's not a purchase, preparing if they're going to an event, and then they're at the event, and then it's after the event, and they have the impact of the event, which can go on for quite some time. So I like to think about how mobile can, if we go mobile first, where we can pull mobile into this and think about it as a connected journey. So awareness is all about that search. So having the mobile responsive site that will come up, and it's a Google mobile friendly site, so it's going to come up high in the search results. Social media is obviously a really important awareness tool in terms of getting those who are existing followers to share, and also to use social media advertising and other mobile advertising cleverly. And video is another one. Video is a great sharing tool on mobile. And then when they get to the research phase, so they've become aware of you, they need to find out a bit more. Obviously, video is very important. Blog posts and mobile responsive websites, all those things are kind of, you may think of other things as well, and you may have your own ideas about these stages related to your audience. Obviously, at the booking stage, this is where if you're selling tickets or you're selling donations, this is where you really have to make sure your provider is mobile responsive. You need to be pressuring them for this if they're not, because that can really break the chain of the journey if they go from your lovely mobile responsive email to your mobile responsive site, and then they can't make the purchase or the donation in a mobile friendly way. And then when they're preparing to come into an event, for example, this is where, sorry for the typo, your mobile responsive website and your mobile responsive email is really important. And then at the event, that's where you really capitalize on social sharing. They're on their mobile, they're at their event, they're excited, and they can share instantly. Mobile streaming, this is where you might use Periscope, for example, depending on the event. If they're mobile tickets, where they can come and have their ticket scanned on their mobile phone, and potentially location-based technology, where perhaps you're a venue that can have iBeacons or other location-based tools where once people are in the vicinity, they can get messaging or content related to where they are. And there's all sorts of ways that's happening in museums and in venues and like. And then finally, they've been to the event. This is where social sharing as well is important, and perhaps triggered emails, which is another trend. Automated triggered emails is really expanding based on the data you have about the customer, sending them emails related to their behaviour. So that's where this can come in, and making sure they're mobile optimised. And also your video is another tool at that point. So just really trying to get you thinking about that multi-channel journey. On the other hand as well, it's not just digital. So this quote says that all the brands that seamlessly connect physical, desktop, mobile and other devices to make one joined up experience for their customers stand to be very successful. And that is challenging, but we need to be thinking that way. I thought this was interesting about the two modes of multi-screening. So there's simultaneous usage where people are using more than one device at the same time. And that becomes interesting, for example, if you're advertising on TV and then you want them to look something up or engage or participate in some way. And then sequential usage is when they move from one device to another at different times to accomplish a task. Good to know about this. So if you're having a streamlined experience, you're going to get your email. It's going to be mobile optimized, for example, and then when you go across to the website, there's going to be an appropriate branded landing page, and that's also going to be mobile responsive, and the customer is just going to feel really at ease and secure and have a good experience. So at this point, I'm just going to break very briefly just for a couple of minutes if there's any burning questions right now. And then I'm going to hand over to Lauren, who's going to tell us about a real-life mobile journey that's not just theory. So are there any questions at this point? We are also having a break for questions at the end, so don't feel pressured to ask questions if you want us to keep going now. So question from Sue, can you talk a bit more about split testing across devices? Yeah, just really when we're running email campaigns, as much as possible, we should be thinking about called A/B testing, or it could be A/B/C/D testing, where you are testing different elements of your email campaigns to different users. So it's going to depend a lot, and I might have to talk to you about this independently afterwards, but it's going to depend a lot on your email management system. But it would be a good idea to test out the different templates, mobile responsive versus not mobile responsive, and just really remembering that in your split testing, it's not just about split testing content, but it's, if you can, dividing up your lists and split testing to those who are mobile versus not. So for example, MailChimp has enabled you to see in your list who is using a mobile email client versus a desktop. So testing different elements, I think, of your campaigns and different templates across those is really what I mean. It's a fancy term for just that, trying different things out. So continue on and hand across to the lovely Lauren.
Hey, so what we were talking about, and Vicky was talking about, is the numbers of your audience or potential ticket purchasers that are now on experiencing your website on mobile. And as you can see for us, it's around 41%, but nearly half of our audience obviously is checking us out on mobile. And that's a pretty exciting and pretty terrifying thing in certain ways. But the good thing we can now look at is how does that translate to sales. So when we look at sales over the last few years, we've sort of gone from about 6.5% in tickets purchased on mobile to now up to sort of 22% across, say, iTicket, for example. So last year, between 12 and 22% of our tickets across different ticketing providers were on mobile. So it's a significant number of sales. So you really need to make sure that your audience is catered for online. And it's really nice that we're and have the luxury of building a new website this year, the one you just saw before. I am happily saying goodbye to after sort of 7 years. So it's pretty exciting to be building a new website. So we're currently in that phase, and I'll talk a little bit about that, I guess, journey over the last 6 months or so, and some of the, I guess, tips that we have from that. Vicky, are you controlling those slides now? Yeah, excellent. Cool. I won't go too much into the details in terms of the growth on mobile. You can kind of see that that's happening, and we just kind of have to get on board with it. So one of the things that I would like to sort of talk about is thinking about why people are using mobile, how their habits are changing. You know, have you bought anything on a mobile device? And when you did that, was it easier? Was it just as easy? Were you scared about that it would turn out? You know, so it's about having trust that putting your credit card details in on a mobile device will actually get you the purchase that you want, and the tickets will turn up, or the clothing that you've ordered or whatever will turn up. There's also a lot more sharing on devices. Obviously, people are sharing videos when they watch them on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all those sorts of things. But there's also I think, a social change in a lot of households. People are sitting on the couch watching TV, as Vicky said, but they're also, watching a video. Last night, for example, the Steve Joyce Dildo Baggins video came up on John Oliver's last week tonight, and obviously you have probably all seen that across your social media pages. But, the first thing I wanted to do was show my partner when he got home, and I played it to him on my mobile device because that was the easiest thing to do that. So I guess that's what's changing. You might be sitting in a flat watching something on TV with your friends or flatmates, and, people are showing different photos or different videos and sharing content that way. So it's sort of slightly different than sitting around, I guess, a desktop. Some people will come and join you, but it's certainly that kind of couch sharing is a real opportunity, particularly for the arts. There's a really nice sharing and buy-in, and we're like, oh, should we go to that? Yeah, that looks awesome. We should totally do that. So that's something to really think about and look at ways that you can take advantage of. Coming into building a new website, essentially you have two websites in one now. And Vicky, if you can move to the slide where we've got a sample view of the new website. Excellent. Cool. So, this is a draft version of the new website. So there is a part of the process that we're yet to experience. We get our site handover on Thursday to go on sale next Wednesday. So a nice tight turnaround to load everything up on it and make sure it's all working. It's a really exciting process building a new website. I can give you some tips on I guess, some of the learnings that we've had. First of all, I think it's incredibly important to sit down with your team and go through every element of your website. I am like literally every page, every element, what's working, what's not working, and it's really tricky to make sure that you have every single element kind of catered for, but that is the most important thing you will have to give to your web developers. Okay. Yeah, so we, just to go through the process, is we went out and looked for web developers. We went onto a number of web developers' websites and looked at their websites and went, do we like this? Are we into their style? How they're communicating things? Does it sort of match with our vibe, or whatever you want to say? And we found that actually eliminated a lot of web developers in the first instance. We had a look at some websites that we really liked and who built them, and that was another really good way to find web developers. You can also find web developers, I guess, that aren't in New Zealand. We certainly chose New Zealanders because it was, I think it's really important to sort of meet them and be on the ground with them, but that is always an option. There are options around that. We settled on working with a company called Little Giant, who are based in Auckland, and has been incredible so far. It's been a really pleasurable journey, which is really nice to say, because sometimes you don't get to say that with web development. Hopefully that is still the case when I get it on Thursday, so I'll let you know. I think it's really important to think about particularly sort of bringing it into mobile, what are the different user journeys for the audience on different devices? If you look at a website desktop site, what are the things you can sort of do with that? Can you add recommendations in? Can you add extra content? On mobile, What are they doing there? What do they want to know? And how can you get them that information? Are they looking there on a mobile to browse, or are they looking for a specific show? There's probably a lot of research around. My gut is that they tend to be looking for more specific information, and certainly they may have gone there from an email, for example, one of your EDMs. They might have clicked on and then they go, oh, I just want to read a little bit more about Di Human, for example, and I want to buy tickets. So have a think about why your users are going there. For the comedy festival and a festival environment, we have multiple shows. Some of you will just have one show. So that your needs might be different to a festival. So think about it from your specific perspective. I'm particularly referring today to festivals because that's what we're working on, so I can give you some really good examples in terms of that. I think it's important to think about, as I mentioned, why people are using the mobile website. For example, here's some possible reasons. They've gone directly through an email link. They've been sent there by Facebook. They're looking for a show last minute. They went through Google search. They're trying to find a venue or location address. Does your mobile website connect with Google Maps? Because that's really important. If it's just a visual map, what people often want to do is click it and get the location and get the directions of how to get there. They maybe want to find information on a particular show. They might want to find transport options or dining options. Obviously, we're hoping they want to buy tickets, but they might want to check out a video of content. So, in our case, a clip of a comedian. They might want to see some review quotes. They might want to show a friend the comedian that they're talking about, for example. So having something that's really easy for someone to read over someone's shoulder is also important these days. They might have clicked a banner ad through from another website, and they might just want to find a show to go to that night. And they might also be lining up in a box office queue and it's really long, and they might want to buy a ticket quicker because that kind of can actually be a lot quicker. A good example of this is if you go to the movies, you turn up and there are two lines where your online ticket purchase, which has basically no queue, and then the other ones which have a huge queue of people just trying to buy tickets at the time. So there are starting to be advantages for purchasing early. So if you can think about ways that you can reward your audience for purchasing early on the website or particularly on mobile, or there could be something at the box office of if you're experiencing a long queue, you can actually buy your tickets on our mobile really quickly. So that sort of thing is really good to think about, or work with your venues to make that kind of messaging really obvious. It also helps with things like box office staffing. It takes the pressure off them, and everybody's kind of happy, which is really cool. As I mentioned, it's really important to think about the needs of the user. So you really need to make sure that your mobile website is quick to load. It's really easy to navigate. It has a simple path to find what you want. The text size, as Vicky mentioned, is really easy to read. The buttons are easy, or the links are easy to click. In our EDMs, we've made really clickable buttons so that if you've got big thumbs, you can click on it really easily. Think about literally the size of people's hands. When you're testing an EDM on mobile, are things big enough for you to push? Stuff like that is super simple, but it makes a massive difference if you're actually using a device. On mobile, the less pages are the better, and ideally you don't want to be zooming in and out. I mean, people will do it, but it's much better to be optimized for mobile. I think it's really important to look at a lot of visuals. Really, beautiful photos and stuff like that are going to sell things just as much as copy a lot of the time. And that also your video is really obvious that it's a video, and that it's really easy to watch also. Just to kind of, I guess, give you a recent example that I've been noticing is News Hub, which is TV3's former rebranded, I guess, news station and app. It's quite an interesting one to go and have a look at, and you can compare it to, say, stuff.co.nz or NZ Herald, and see how they've really changed quite significantly the size of images, the way you sort of navigate and move around. It's much more image driven. Videos are really easy to watch, and you can get a lot of the tips from using things that are outside of the app. That was one of the things we noticed when building our website, is often app companies have limited budgets. They have a lot of particular things that they have to cater for. So certain amount of shows, or, for us in Auckland, we have 130 shows this year, for example. So, there are compromises we'll have to make on our website that other businesses might not have to. So when you're looking at building a new website, it's really important to go and look at other websites outside of the app and how they work and how they kind of get people in. Things that we were looking at when we were redesigning our website were things like, what are people on? They're on ASOS, they're on TradeMe. How do we utilize some of those things that are keeping them in those places on our website? How can we use a clothing shop tricks to keep them online and get them looking at more things and browsing and stuff like that? So that was a really important part of our thinking. And along that, it's also, I would suggest using familiar language. So across sites. So if there's language that's being used on Facebook or TradeMe or news sites or ASOS, for example, you can bring those into the app. You don't always have to use arts terms around ticketing, so that I guess the crossover of people and developing new audiences that might not be as familiar with arts terms, they kind of know what it is instantly. For example, looking at where traditionally navigation buttons and things like that are placed on a bunch of websites. You don't want to be unique in having your search at the bottom, for example, when everyone has it at the top. People sort of get into habits of how they go around a website. So it's really important, I think, to look at where people are putting search buttons and things like that. Also for mobile, it's really important for things like search buttons, but again, they're really big, and when people type it in, it's nice and big type. It's not teeny tiny type that they can't touch with their thumbs and their fingers. I guess, mobile can be a bit of a clumsy experience in that way, and so it's really important to cater for those things. We're obviously building a mobile responsive website, which is seems to, for us, make the most sense. It's more cost effective for us. Also, we're loading the information once. But what I will show, Vicky, if you move on to the next slide, what I wanted to show you here is the difference, I guess, of what it looks like on the sort of full desktop site as opposed to on a mobile screen. Now, as I say, sorry, this is a draft, it's a mock-up, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of the stuff that's included. So, for example, if we look on the left-hand side, it's the top when you hit, if you go to a show page, so you've got your top navigation there. So at any point you can see which location you're in, that you can favourite or shortlist that show, that you can search for another show, or that you can look for a specific date in the calendar. There are also, we've got the branding across the top there and the dates of the festival to remind people when it's on. And then we've also got what they call the navigation burger, which is a new term I've learned, which if you click on that gives you all the other options that you might need. And also giving people the option to go back easily if they've gone to the page by mistake. It's actually really important that they can navigate around really nicely. So as you go onto that first page, you click on and you get the comedian's name for us and title, really nice and present, and a nice big image. Under that, we have the buy tickets or add to shortlist right under the image. We've done that because that's for people who are just want to buy a ticket to buy a show. And so we can do that, they can do that and then they can move on. And then below that, we have content. So in terms of, a little bit about his show. This is for people who are discovering more about Di's show. And then a video of Di performing so that people have an idea of what kind of style he is. Under that, we then have the tour. We then have the details. You can pick a date. You can see what times. You can see what venue. You can see the ticket prices. Below that, we also have wheelchair access, any age restrictions, and things like that. And we also have reviews at the very bottom. So that was the order that we decided was the most important on mobile. When we first worked with the web developers, they had the details. So they went from, sorry, so when we were talking to the web developers, they had the ticketing detail, the dates and the ticketing details and everything straight below the image. And for us, we felt that was actually distracting, that you really wanted to get people to buy into the show before you got to those details. If they were looking for the details, they'd just scroll down. And so that's kind of, I guess, in a nutshell, what we're doing. I guess the other point before I sort of finish, because I'm running out of time, is that building websites and maintaining websites can be really expensive, and you often have to get it across your board or your funders or supporters. And so one of the things that can really be helpful there is talking about opening up and driving new revenue streams. So it's really important to think about if you're going to put ads on your website and where you're going to put those, and how not just putting them at the bottom all the time so that they don't get viewed. They need to get clicks, and but they also need to not take away from the tickets that you're trying to sell. So certainly build that into your planning if you're building on mobile and on desktop. Generally on desktop it's quite easy. There's quite obvious places for advertising, but on mobile it's a little bit trickier. So I would suggest looking across different websites. For example, if you look at stuff.co.nz on mobile, the advertising is pretty dramatic, and it can sort of really affect the user experience. They tend to have ads mid-story, so you think the story's ended, but then realise there's actually more below. It's probably really successful from an ad perspective, but from a user experience, it's not wonderful. I think NewsHub's doing some interesting stuff. They've got some sort of thinner tiles that are coming across, but they don't seem to invade the story in quite the same way. So I'd look across different mobile sites to get some good ideas from them. I think that's pretty much it from me. Vicky, was there anything else you wanted me to cover? Oh yeah, okay, cool. Basically, I'll just really quickly go through some tips. I think pretty much I've covered a lot of these things, and you can go back and read them at some point if you want to. But it's really important to do a lot of planning before you even go to the web developer, and it's really important to sit down and talk through everything. You'll talk through everything. You really need to note everything and go through it. And you'll think you've made something really clear, and then they'll come back and have not thought that was that important, or realise that was actually a much bigger job than they thought it was, and sort of try and go, oh, you don't really need that. So sometimes you need to think of, sometimes you need to really push for certain things, and other times you need to think of compromises of what can work and different ways that you can do it. And you can also go out to your stakeholders and ask them how they use the website if you're questioning that. Make sure as much as possible everything's editable, and a good CMS or content management system is really important. Everything is much more editable than it used to be, which is really great, and you'll save a lot of money by not having to get the web developer to edit everything for you. We're using Silverstripe, which is a New Zealand content management system, but has a really great global reputation. So as I say, once I start working on that, I'll be able to update you more, but it seems to have a lot of flexibility and space. Cool.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lauren. Yeah, I want people to have time to ask you a few questions at the end, so I'm just going to jump quickly into the analytics section. A lot of this you can have a look at yourself later on when you get a copy of the slide deck, but and then we can jump across to Lauren for any questions that you have. So I'm really just letting you know that you can get quite a lot of insights into your mobile audiences within Google Analytics, YouTube Insights, and Facebook Insights, and your email management system. So the sorts of things you're interested in overall are sort of acquisition, where are they coming from, how are they engaging on mobile, and what are they converting into. So types of things are the percentage of mobile web visits, the number of web visits, what devices they're using, the engagement on mobile versus tablet versus desktop, on web, social, and video, the growth of mobile web visits as a proportion of your traffic, and where your mobile traffic is coming from, and your conversion to goals on mobile, tablet versus desktop. So I pulled out a few reports for you. I don't have time to go into them in detail, but what I've done is noted on here which report this is. So for those of you who have Google Analytics embedded on your website, you'll be able to go in and have a look at these. So, and then you can read my little summary at the top here to kind of go and find out more. But you can see the breakdown of your traffic by device in Google Analytics, and then across the top you can see some metrics around acquisition and behaviour, and then if you have goals set up, you can see how they're converting to your website goals, things like email sign-up, for example. And then you can view that breakdown by device, so you can go in and actually see what devices they're using, which is incredibly important when you're going through a process like Lauren's, where you're trying to design your new website. You can use compare to past feature in Google Analytics to then take any of these reports and see where you were a year ago versus now. And that will give you your growth in the different devices. And there's a tool in Google Analytics called segmentation, which has default segments where you can set up custom segments. And there's a default mobile and tablet traffic segment. And that is a way, when you apply that segmentation, then you can see any of your reports, and this is a traffic source report. You can apply the segment and you can see what is the difference in what's coming from that segment versus the whole. And here's an example where I've done it on a content one, where I can go and see what pages they're viewing on mobile, etc. Social network referrals is another one where you can break it down by mobile, that mobile segment. And then just, of course, in YouTube Insights, you can look at behaviour on devices. This is just an example of one email client, MailChimp, where you can break down within the list what are the top email clients to get a sense of what people are using. And Facebook is now enabling you to look at people by device. So you can have a look at that later. And some of some more stats around the growth of website visits by mobile and tablet and Optimizer. And a little case study that is useful for you to look at a bit later on, which is very interesting in that it's an entertainment website, ifc.com, and it has proven that it is getting higher engagement on its mobile site than it is on its desktop, and that's kind of pretty much unheard of. You typically see shorter times on mobile and higher bounce rates where they jump off the site after one page. But this site is actually seeing that with a good mobile site, you can actually have higher engagement on mobile. So mobile's no longer a thing, it's just there. We have to accept that now. And yeah, I've given you some resources here, by the way, that you can go and have a look at some of the things I've mentioned. But I really want to quickly, because we've only got a few minutes left, lots of questions, because I feel like you're going to have questions of Lauren in particular, and I want to give you that opportunity. Does anyone have any questions to ask Lauren about her experience and what she's seeing and what she's finding during the web development process?
Vicky, while people are thinking of questions, one of the things that might be useful was in this process we've been using Basecamp as a way to communicate and basically keep all our data, and so everybody's included. Emails aren't getting lost, and we can also track back all the conversations about certain elements within the website build. And the other thing we've been using for the visual sign-off and questions is a program called Envision, which is a really great, basically you can get screenshots sort of online. You can go in and make comments, ask questions, draw on the screenshots and things like that. And it's a really good way to communicate, design, ask how functionality works, and that sort of stuff. And also you have those comments on there as a record, and then they can be resolved once they've been sorted out.
Thanks, Lauren. I've used Basecamp with a couple of different web developers and web development projects, and it is incredibly useful. It's a project management tool, and it does keep all those conversations, so you can go back and go, didn't I ask for that? Or when did we make that decision? So it is useful. Another tool I'd like to throw out there for viewing your website on multiple devices is called Screenfly. So screen and then fly.com, and that enables you, it shows you on every single device what your website looks like currently, and that's an incredibly useful and sometimes humbling tool. And we don't seem to have any questions yet. Oh, here we go. One for Vicky. Curious what you think about iBeacon technology that you mentioned earlier, something we're going to be seeing more of when it comes to interacting with customers at shows and events. Yeah, I mean, it's being used a lot in things internationally, in particular in places like retail outlets. I know there's a couple of organisations with venues here that are starting to consider using it. I can't say that I'm a resident expert on iBeacon. I think you have to be careful when a customer's walking around, they don't feel like you're stalking them. So it's about providing really relevant information or offers. Something that I thought was interesting was I was reading about location-based technology, and originally, if you think about social platforms like Foursquare, it started out, that was quite an active use of, it required very active use by the customer, and the trend of it is that it has evolved to passive use of locations, meaning the customer gets given prompts. So Facebook and Twitter have fully embraced this idea as they began pushing for users to tag updates with location as a secondary action versus a primary action. So customers are getting more used to the sort of location-based stuff. And there was a recent survey by the Pew Institute, which said that 74% of adult smartphone owners say they use their phone to get directions or other information based on their current location. So I think it's sort of new here, this iBeacon technology idea, where people get prompts as they're in the venue, but I think this is showing us that they're starting to get more used to this idea of being tracked and where they are and seeing its value. So I would say with everything we have to give them value and relevance when we're using it. I hope that sort of starts to answer the question. That's just my views anyway. Were there any other questions, or I may have to hand back to you, Helen, given that we've come up to 11:30?
Thanks, Vicky. If anyone does have a question that they think about later on this morning, please feel free to email either myself or Grace Sinclair, and we'll certainly pass those on. I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us today, and a special thanks to Vicky and Lauren for an excellent session. Don't forget, we will be sending you slides and a recording of the presentation so you can revisit for hot tips and information on what to prioritise around mobile. We'd like you to take a couple of minutes as well to complete a short survey to tell us what you thought of today's webinar, and that's really useful for us just to gauge obviously how things are going and what was good about today's session, and you know, what you might use in the future. And we very much look forward to seeing many of you again at the next Optimise webinar, which will be on creating and curating digital content to engage audiences in a couple of months' time. That's on Wednesday, the 25th of May, again from 10 till 11, and Grace will be in touch with further details. So until then, thanks everybody for your patience and, as always, your company, and thank you again, Vicky and Lauren. Really great session today, and hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now. Ka kite anō.
Thank you, Helen.